Hi folks, this is your MWIS Planning Outlook with the details into the weekend and beyond. Looking at the general weather patterns through this week ahead, we're seeing a ridge of high pressure starting to build to the west of us, which is due to bring some quieter weather conditions heading into this weekend. Low pressure is pulling away eastwards, and that's drawing in a colder Arctic northwesterly airflow later this week, so a quite marked drop of temperature and freezing level. Some crisp early winter season conditions on the way then into the weekend, but in the short term we do have some quite mild air that's over the country through the middle of this week. So when we look at the temperature anomaly over 5 days, things do balance out quite close to average, but we do have that chillier air starting to move its way in. Taking that forwards into the following 5 days, and that colder theme is expected to become established quite widely across Britain and Europe, so some colder times ahead. Just notice the milder colours on this chart up towards the northwest though. That may just be allowing some of the milder Atlantic air to come in across northwest Scotland, at least at times. The 5-day rainfall accumulations look like this. In the current 5-day spell through until the weekend, it's northwest Scotland that sees the greatest amounts of rain, and that's a story that will happen through Wednesday and Thursday. Patchy, drizzly rain elsewhere across Western Hills, but amounts generally small further south into Wales, and not too much to the eastern side of the Pennines, and really small amounts as well over the eastern parts of the Highlands. Current modelled forecasts do still see some rainfall coming into western Scotland into the following 5 days into next week, but overall precipitation amounts are looking pretty small as we go forward, certainly compared to many recent weeks. Let's take you through the freezing level sequence then over the days ahead, and through Wednesday at least we've got some mild air that's across the country, and temperatures are above freezing by a few degrees to the highest of the mountain tops, but that will change as we go into Thursday as a cold front sinks southwards. It starts off above freezing across a good part of central Scotland southwards, but that colder air already starting to arrive in the far north, and that freezing level will drop through the daytime towards 800 metres across many northern areas by early afternoon, and by the time we get into the early evening that will be down nearer to 600 metres across northern Scotland and more widely down to 800 metres across most of the Highlands. And that lowering freezing level continues to push southwards over northern England and into Wales by the time we get to dawn on Friday. So even across the Welsh mountains, you're close to freezing point on the highest tops. The Lake District likewise maybe just below freezing on the tops. For the Highlands, that freezing level widely then dipping below 600 metres, maybe all except the far western coast. Some frost as well in the sheltered valleys and glens on Friday morning, and that freezing level during the daytime will stay low. It will stay only between around 600 and 800 metres, so most mountain terrain then is going to be frozen. Touch higher still across Wales, but the high tops near to freezing point. Frost forming widely and quickly on Friday night into Saturday, a hard frost then for Saturday morning in most valleys and glens. Temperatures then staying near or below freezing point from low elevations upwards into the daytime. Some pockets will start to rise, and generally the freezing level will be up to around 700 metres or so by the time we get into the afternoon, with an early return to frost into the evening. It gets a bit trickier into Sunday because there's a push of some cloud and some slightly less cold air coming in from the west, but broadly most mountains staying near or below freezing point. It might just be that temperatures are a touch higher by that time. These are your synoptic charts for the days ahead. Wednesday sees that powerful westerly wind across the country. We have a warm sector moving across Scotland, so that's the milder air that's around in the short term. Some persistent rain and drizzle across western Scotland, some heavier falls of rain across northwestern mountains during the day, patchier rain further east, some patchy light rain and drizzle across northern England, and a little drizzle in the wind across West Wales. Low cloud covering many western mountains, some higher cloud bases further to the east. It's a very windy day, wild across the Scottish mountains, severe gales over the high tops, 60-70 miles per hour or stronger, and those speeds increasing as the day goes on. Some very gusty conditions too over the tops, over the lakes and the North Pennines, also gale or severe gale force in places. Those storm force winds will continue into Thursday then, with speeds 60 to 80 miles per hour or more across the tops overnight and into the morning. They will only gradually ease down, so expect gale force winds over 40 or 50 miles per hour all the way through the daytime across most mountains. The cold front then is sinking southwards, ushering in that chillier air from the north as we've seen. A belt of rain will slip south across southern Scotland into northern England, turning more persistent here, reaching North Wales later in the afternoon, turning to snow on its back edge as it fades over the Highlands, and then snow showers with some hail mixed in will feed in across northern areas through the afternoon and onwards into the evening time. By Friday, high pressure is centred out to the west and the cold front has pulled all the way southwards into France, so all of Britain is in that cold northerly airstream. The winds will still be strong and up to gale force across the higher mountains, especially in more eastern regions, speeds just easing down slightly in the west and not as strong as previous days, but will provide a severe wind chill factor across the tops. Sub-zero air temperatures will feel closer to -15 to -20 on the highest terrain where exposed. Snow showers feeding into northern Scotland will be quite frequent locally in the northwest and into the Cairngorms, here with some hail mixed in as well, and snow will fall pretty much to the lowest of slopes away from the immediate coast. Elsewhere, central, southern parts of the Highlands and most of England and Wales will see a bright and sunny day. One or two local bands of showers could just clip into northwestern parts of Wales, though again with some snow across the mountains. Not expecting too much in total, but by the time we get to the end of Friday, the snow accumulation model shows northern Scotland seeing a good covering across the mountain tops then, and even down to some mid-slopes by this stage. So a few centimetres worth of depth over these regions. Elsewhere, just a dusting maybe where a few showers have occurred, but still just watch out for some icy conditions then heading for the weekend. Saturday is looking a pretty optimistic story as high pressure is building in, lots of crisp sunshine around, some patchy cloud but excellent visibility, very clear air having come down from the Arctic. Still quite breezy on some tops but nowhere near as windy as previous days, but will still just take the edge off the temperature, which will stay sub-zero on the mountains, so do be prepared for that significant chill factor, especially on more eastern tops where the speeds will be strongest. Any showers most likely confined to the easternmost coasts of England, so it's a dry day in prospect overall. As we've hinted at, Sunday is less certain in terms of the detail. High pressure is still nearby. There's bits of weak fronts that maybe just start to drift through. This may just bring that more in the way of cloud and that risk of some patchy snow flurries with some drizzly rain on lower slopes, especially near to western coast. So just expect more cloud in the forecast, fairly light winds. It could still be a substantially dry day for many places though. The detail into next week is rather unconvincing at this stage, but the general message is that high pressure stays somewhere just to the west and low pressure generally towards the east. There could still be some weak fronts again pushing through that system, giving variable cloud and some patchy light rain or snow flurries occasionally, temperatures hovering near to freezing point or below across many of the higher mountains throughout much of the time, some occasional lift of that temperature just coming into the west. But overall, a relatively quiet weather sequence is expected, just some day-to-day variations that will become clearer as we get nearer the time. Further onwards into early December and the model charts still see high pressure nearby, and that ridge may be just slipping slightly further south and eastwards by this stage, with lower pressure over the Atlantic, so maybe just some returning fronts coming in with a bit more strength by this stage. Some milder air trying to push into western Scotland then. Elsewhere could be a fairly quiet and chilly story still, with some frost and fog in the forecast under higher pressure. It's going to be interesting just to see how things do pan out over the next week or so in the forecast modelling as they grapple with the colder air masses trying to move in. For a while we've been thinking about the idea that the early winter season could provide some chillier weather patterns. There's various big puzzle pieces in the atmosphere at play, all sort of tied in with things going on in the high stratosphere and also connected in an indirect way to happenings over the tropical Pacific in the El Niño situation that's around. All of those kind of tie together and give the scope for colder patterns across northern Europe in early winter, and it could be a chart like this that ends up not too far from the mark in early December, where high pressure is up toward the north, low pressure is over the continent, and that would allow a much colder Scandinavian east or northeast of the airflow to get in. No guarantees on the detail and timing of that as yet, but just the hints are there. The puzzle pieces are trying to position themselves to give us some winter at the start of the season, so things to watch very carefully. In the short term at least, we do have that arrival of wintry conditions heading into the weekend. Enjoy that if you can. That is your planning outlook. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.